So just as a way of introduction, my name, I'll just put that on there. Who am I? My name is Karen Walsh. I do a lot of coaching of women. I own a business. I do a lot of leadership development, executive coaching. I used to be a university lecturer, psychologist, and I've worked on 3 different continents around the world. And in January next year, we go into another one, being Papua New Guinea. So in a nutshell, I have a deep connection with and passion for growing women at all levels. I love working with women. I always have, I always will, for a whole range of different reasons. I like to help them lead the lives I believe women were born to lead, free from fear and limiting beliefs that they will never get to where they want to go. I'm also being very open here, being publicly, I say things like I believe that women really make better leaders in many ways than men do, and there's a whole range of different reasons around that. I think that we tend to be more collaborative, we tend to negotiate better, and I think there's also a greater sense of understanding of empathy in other people's feelings and sensitivities. Over my life, I've worked with families, marriages, and individuals for over 20 years. I remember in 2006, I worked with 604 marriages. Don't quite know how I did that, but really enjoyed the work. I write, I do lots of columning, and I'm a motivational speaker. These are just some of the pictures I have of some of the wonderful opportunities I've had over the world or on the various continents around the world in terms of working with different cultures, different people, and really just having such a gift in terms of a gift being given to me, that is, to work with different people. When we talk about my work with women, so I've coached and trained thousands of women over 25 years really, and I always show this as a screenshot that I'm going into. Very often I find women are very tired, very exhausted, and I think it's because we have so much to do and we do so many things. And very often when I speak to women, how are you today? Well, good, okay, tired, exhausted, can't wait to go back to bed. There was a woman I was working with not that long ago, and I was actually running a training program in Tamworth. And she had come, sorry, I'm just adjusting my headset. She had driven 6 hours to come to the training program, and literally at about 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning, she was exhausted and falling asleep on the table. And I like to believe I'm not a particularly boring trainer, but I stopped the class at about 10 o'clock and I said, why are you so exhausted? And as I said, she'd driven 6 hours to get there because, you know, rural places don't always have great training. And I think she just epitomized for me how exhausted we really are as a gender, because we do so much and we try so much. So tell me, are you here? Do you sometimes wake up thinking, oh my gosh, what's the right way up? What does my world look like? Or do you think that you have often a bad hair day and do I have to get out of bed? Or do you think I'm so tired of trying? I think if I have to choose all of them, that's probably the one that I most like. And hopefully what I like to believe, that once I've worked with women and I really try and give women goals and tips and strategies to live better, to be more empowered, to be more resilient, to manage stress. And I always like to believe, hopefully, that once I've finished working with them, and as I explained, I've been working with women for many, many years, actually 2 decades, they look a little bit more like this, hopefully, zestful, energetic. And look at this one, this woman's in her 90s. Now, I'm nowhere near in my 90s, and I can tell you something, I will never, ever be able to do that. Unfortunately, not that that's a negative script, but it's just, I think we also have to be realistic. So when we talk about working with women and the work that I love to do with women, I think it's really around, you know, one of the core issues I find working with women is we are so limited by our own self-defeating thinking. I would say that, you know, I wrote this blog the other day, which was, women are, you know, are we our greatest allies or are we our greatest foes? And I think in so many ways, whilst we like to believe that we are our greatest allies, in many ways we're not. We're our greatest foes. So it was out of a very, very unfortunate incident around domestic violence a couple of years ago that I actually wrote this program called Empowering Women to Thrive. And essentially what it is it comes initially obviously from my work with women, but initially out of the domestic violence space, although the Empowering Women to Thrive is not focused on domestic violence. And I'm about helping women at all levels and ages thrive, really. So the program really looks at a conference a year, women's retreats, a 12-stage Empowered Women program. We're about to put that online in January. When it's online, I'll let you all know. 2-day programs for women, and those are sort of topics like the emotional intelligent woman, becoming resilient as a woman, communicating more effectively. We do monthly meetups, coaching, and of course webinars like this. So really what my dedication in all of these webinars and all of the work I do is to try and help women become more empowered in their lives and live more meaningfully and productively. So get involved. So when I talk about, what are those things I think that more women face than anything else, it would be fear, it would be a lack of confidence, and with fear and a lack of confidence, I think, comes a lack of courage. A lack of courage to do things that they feel uncomfortable doing, fearful doing, not able to do in their minds, they're not able to do. And so this particular webinar is dedicated to that. Let's talk about fear, let's talk about confidence, let's talk about courage and what we need to do as women to become more courageous and confident, not only at work, not only at home, but essentially in ourselves, in our skin. In the ability to do what it is that we want to do in our lives and to live happily, really. Because I was doing a sort of brief little survey with some of the women I'm working with at the moment, and I would say that more than 60% of the women that I'm working with at the moment are unhappy about something, their career, their relationship, their weight, the way they look. And I think it's really an important point that we start to get some of these things into perspective. So what is confidence, ladies? Well, it's basically having trust, a belief in something, trustworthiness, the reliability of a person or a thing. So I have confidence that somebody will do what they say they will do. I have confidence that if I am asked to do something, I'm going to do it well. I have confidence that I am a good mum or I am a good worker. I have confidence in my partner that they will be trustworthy. So confidence really is to have a trustworthiness about or a belief in. And I think the reason why I raise that is because notice I talk about trustworthiness in our partner or knowing that our kids will do what they say they will do, etc., etc. But I really believe that the inner confidence starts from within all of us, that we know our limitations. I think we've got to be realistic, but we also very much focus on the strengths we bring. We know the weaknesses. I don't like the word, but I'll use it. We know the weaknesses that we have, but we overcome those by doing things or putting things in place to try and deal with those weaknesses. A belief in oneself and the things that we have as our powers or our abilities. Self-confidence is about relying on yourself to be assured in your own self. So confidence really ultimately as a woman is to feel good about ourselves, to trust ourselves, and to know that we are capable of doing what we want to do and what we say we will do. And I think one thing I want to say at the outset is that whilst we might have the confidence and be courageous in doing what we don't think we can, but we do anyway, I think part of that is not to have negative thinking. I think one of the greatest issues we face as the female gender is thinking that is limiting. I can't do this, I'll never be able to do that, I'll never get the job. Because if we think negatively or if we think we cannot, then we never can. If we think we can, then there's a good chance that we will. So one of the things I always address when I'm running my programs is negative thinking and how that adversely affects us as women moving forward. When we talk about women in confidence, many women tell me they feel bad about themselves. And it's really interesting because it's not bad about any one thing. It's sometimes a myriad of different things, weight, intelligence. I was coaching a senior woman the other day, and she was really interesting. And she was going to a meeting that night on leadership. And I was talking to her about leadership and some of the issues around leadership in the world today. And it was clear to me that she wasn't up with modern day leadership. And that's absolutely fine. We don't all have to know what Donald Trump is doing or Kim Jong-un. But I think if you're in a leadership position at work, and I think also if you are on the rise up organizations, it's really important that we have the opportunity to understand things like leadership and what's going on around us. So when she told me I feel really bad and stupid, I don't know about what's going on in the world, I then spent an hour telling her, and we talked a lot about it. It was really interesting because when she went into that dinner party that she had that night, a lot of the discussion was around leadership in the world today. And because we had had that very brief coaching and we talked about it, she was very able to hold her own. The point that I make is that sometimes we feel bad about ourselves for no real reason other than if we just did a little bit of research or we paid a little bit more attention to some things, we might be absolutely fine. But I think we get into this downward spiral of thinking we can't as opposed to thinking we can. Many explain they aren't good at their jobs. I think many women aren't, not that they aren't good at their jobs, they just might not be as interested in their jobs. But I think the other thing with women as well is that we're so busy doing so many different things. We're running homes, we're looking after children, we're doing the shopping, we're often looking after aging parents, we're doing a lot of community work, we're looking after the neighbors, we do so many things. We have full-time jobs, we're the taxi, the fetcher, the carrier, the bottle washer, and sometimes I think we don't actually believe we're as good as our jobs as we could be because we're trying to do so much. And for many of us, that's what we do, just so much. Approximately 78% of women between 18 and 36 don't like their bodies. Now, this research was admittedly not done in Australia, it was done in the States. But having said that, I think that if I had to actually take that research from the States and put it into Australia, the figures would be pretty similar. So 18 to 36 are the ages, and 78, almost 80% of women feel they don't like their bodies. And I think that's really sad because, we live in our bodies. We can't really do much about it. I mean, if we're short, we're short. If we're tall, we're tall. We might be able to lose weight or put on weight, but it's very difficult to change our height or, change things about us that are unchangeable. And I think more about, as opposed to hating it or not liking what we look like or parts of our bodies, it's really about coming to some sense of self-acceptance and just acknowledging that that's who I am and I really like who I am, but we don't. We persecute ourselves and we speak badly to ourselves, and of course that ultimately, these negative thinking and thoughts lower our self-confidence time and time again. Negative scripts, as I say, I'll never be good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, I could never get that job, no point in trying, won't get there. And what often I do with women who I'm working with or coaching, I actually get them to write down all of these negative things that they have in their mind on a piece of paper or on a book. So you get yourself a book, and on the left-hand side of the page, you write all of the negative thoughts that you have in a day. And on the right-hand side, what you do is you write answers that are positive to the negative things on the left. So, for example, I'm not good enough would be on the left. On the right-hand side, you might answer that with, I'm good at really many things. Sometimes I don't do things as well as I would like to, but generally I'm good at a lot of things. Note how when you positively frame something that generally you think negatively about, you start to actually like yourself more. You start to become more confident and ultimately more courageous in doing a lot of things that you never thought that you could do. And these are all kinds of things that are causing grief for females of all ages. So if I work with an 18-year-old, I might have slightly different issues. The oldest woman I'm actually working with is somebody, believe this or not, who's 86. And some people would say, well, at 86, you'd probably be happy with who you are, accept who you are. She doesn't. She really doesn't like herself. She doesn't like her body image. And what's interesting in that, from going from 18 to 86, is that the issues are similar, ladies, or they're the same. The youngest person I've ever worked with was a 3-year-old little girl, and I hope she won't have the same issues as she grows, except she's got a mum who often tells herself, being mum, oh, look at me, Karen, how fat I am, I'll never look in that dress. And I think the point I also make with what I'm saying is that our children tend to mimic what we say to ourselves. I'll give you an example of Joe. Joe came to see me, 27 years of age, and in my eyes she was absolutely beautiful. Long brown hair, tall, most glorious brown eyes. She had a really good career. She wasn't where she wanted to go in her career yet, but she was working on it. But interesting, in her eyes, she's fat, unattractive, and generally unhappy. And I guess because I've been doing this for so long, I was able to sort of just think to myself, wow, it's so sad that somebody so beautiful feels that she's so ugly and unattractive. But I don't make judgment. My job is to help her. She said she can't last in a relationship. She feels lost and alone most of the time. She tells herself she's not worthy. She'll never get the career she wants or the relationship she hopes for. And actually, when she's with me, she cries a lot. And what's interesting about that is ultimately, here we go, the same things, low confidence, lots of fear, lots of negative thinking, and she hates herself most of the time. And I think the important thing about Jo, ladies, is that Jo is typical of a lot of the people I work with, a lot of the women I work with. And it's not something that's unusual. It's not something that I see only here and there. I see it all the time, and I guess it's really comforting in that so many people, so many women will say to me, this is how I feel about my life and I feel so alone. And the important thing to realize is that if this is your story, or if this is some of your story, you're not alone. I have worked with this for so many years, and I continue working with this. And there is a way forward. There is the opportunity to turn things around and to really start living a life, I guess, where you become unstoppable, where there's nothing to stop you from achieving what you want to achieve. But essentially, and I think this is the most important thing, is that it starts with you. You know, we can go on all the self-help courses that we want to go on, and we can go on all of the sort of talks and the, you know, development courses or whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, it's about learning what it is that you need to do to make sure that you move forward and that you are able to turn your lives around and really think about, okay, be accepting and say to yourself, well, all right, I might not look like, I don't know who, Elle Macpherson, right? But at the end of the day, I'm a good person. I've got lots to offer, and I have, you know, everything going for me, and I'm going to actually turn my attitude around and become totally unstoppable. So Jo came in feeling very down on her luck and very unhappy, but I'm going to show you some of the things I did with Jo to help her to move her life forward. So when and where does low self-confidence come from? I'm often asked, where does it come from, but when does it arrive? Often from childhood, but not always. You know, childhoods where people might not have been told, or girls, because I'm talking to women, might not have been told how wonderful you are and that the world's your oyster and how beautiful you are and that no matter what you want to do, you can achieve. So I think a lot of the issues that we have as women come from when we were little. And Sigmund Freud would say, you know, the great psychoanalyst would say, give me the child and I'll show you the man. And his basic premise was that we learn so much of our scripts between the ages of 0 and 7. So hence the give me the child and I'll show you the man or the women. But the good thing, and I think this is an important point, is that we can change those scripts. We can turn our lives around and live fabulously well. Younger days, you know, maybe childhood bullying where children are terribly cruel, call each other fat or ugly, or, you know, you look like a frog, or whatever children do. And what's really interesting and sad about that is that often those kind of childhood taunts, teases, and hurtful things, they really harm us if we allow them to. Previous experiences of being treated badly. It could be by family, it could be by, you know, as I said, school friends, or even in bad relationships. You know, we've tolerated bad relationships, so we not only are we stoppable, but sometimes we just don't even have we sort of like a skeleton of what we used to be. And I think it's really, really important to look at those kind of things and to be able to turn your lives around. Very often, if we're told how stupid we are, not worthy, what happens over time, tragically, is that we come to believe those things. So, you know, this is not particularly stuff that you might not have heard of before, or this might not be news to you, but the impact of these kind of things are important. And if we understand how they affect us, then we know that it's really important that we learn how to overcome these things. And I always say that media is a confidence killer. Oh my gosh. You know, there I sit and I watch some of these women looking absolutely beautiful. You know, blonde, blue-eyed, tall, you know, little beautifully sculpted pixie nose, gorgeous bodies, or even somebody who's a lot older. I think she's 53, Elle Macpherson. And, you know, I think what I would love to do is see women who are more like me, maybe women who are more like you, women who are more normal, maybe a little bit, you know, average. I mean, I'm an average height, and I think I'm an average weight. Do I look like Elle Macpherson? I think probably in my dreams. Do I look at these young women and think, oh, gosh, I wish I looked like them? Maybe I did then. I don't anymore because I'm a lot older. But I think media is a killer, and I'm really glad that a lot of the legal regulations around, you know, body image and reporting of girls, or showing girls, young females, you know, as models walking down the ramp, they're not allowed to be under a particular weight, and they're not allowed to be, I think it's under a particular height. I'm not too sure, but I know they're not allowed to be under a particular weight, because media just kills confidence of young females who might not be anorexic or bulimic, but makes them feel fat about themselves. But I think ultimately, you know, all of those things happen. The root of a lack of confidence is within ourselves. And what I mean by that is that even though we might have had experiences when we were younger that did not help us, if we allow those experiences to make us stoppable and to not allow us to have the confidence and the courage we need to live meaningfully, then we are the problem. It's no good saying, well, I'm like this because of what happened when I was 7. We have the opportunity as women to take hold of the reins of our lives and to really think about, what do I need to do? How do I do this? How can I overcome what I'm dealing with? And generally, it would be with the help of somebody, a life coach, a therapist, generally. But I would say a friend, certainly friends and families can help, but really you need somebody who's skilled at it, somebody who's able to take you down the road to move you forward in a productive and meaningful way. You can retrain your brain by thinking differently, and I think that's a very important point. If you think differently, so you behave differently, and I think ultimately so you feel differently. And that's a whole nother, you know, webinar and a whole nother discussion, but those are very important points as to when and where low self-confidence is gained. So how did Jo get low confidence? She not told how beautiful she was as a child. She often was told that she was not good enough. The classic stuff that I'm describing to you, not smart enough. She always wanted to be a dentist, her dream. She was tall for her age, quite gangly, she described. I think tall is statuesque. She was actually called a giraffe. And you know, I think if you've got a mature mind, you might think, well, giraffe, that's beautiful because that means tall and sophisticated and elegant. But children are awful, and giraffe means, you know, spotty and gangly and awkward. And of course, the media confirmed that she should be either petite, slim and sexy, or tall, slim and sexy, but she felt none of those things. She failed exams at uni, and ultimately she dropped out. So when I started to work with Jo, this is the Jo that I got. And really it was about, what had happened was, she then had created this self-fulfilling prophecy. Because in her mind, she was all of these things, and she allowed herself to stay stuck in this lack of confidence, and also in not really having the courage to do the things that she could have done. And she told herself she will never succeed at anything. So how do we build courage and confidence? You know, confidence is something that drives us. When we're confident, we tend to exude a sense of being an expert, or being somebody who holds our own. We don't seem to be daunted about others. We don't seem to be uncertain and insecure. And I think one of the things to do is to understand what your fears are, to write them down. Very often as women, we've got all these fears running around inside us, but we don't necessarily know what they are. And maybe, as I said, write down your fears in more positive terms. So on the left-hand side of the page, the real fears as you say them, but on the right-hand side, more positive ways of framing them. However, I think really to build true courage and confidence, it's something that really is not done on your own. You need some kind of assistance or coaching to be able to do it more effectively. And once you do that, you'll find ultimately, once you start feeling better about yourself and you're going out and you start trying little things, so it could be, you know, doing a presentation at work, even though it's your dreaded thing. Once you do it once, you start building up the confidence to do it again and again and again, because courage comes over time. Courage isn't necessarily something with which we are born or something that we do immediately. It's basically, courage comes from a sense of building up confidence, self-belief, self-awareness, and also, I guess, thinking that we can as opposed to we cannot. And of course, if you compare yourself to others, well, that's just really a waste of time. Why would you compare yourself to others? Because there's always going to be people who are richer, poorer, taller, shorter, prettier, uglier, fatter, thinner, older, younger. So it's never about a race against others. It's about you and you really learning to thrive and to flourish, to look at your strengths and not focus on the negatives. However, if there are negatives, then to work out what you would like to do about those negatives and how you think that you could actually turn those negatives into positives. And also then, once you've turned them into positives, to start using those positives in your lives on a daily basis so that you become much more confident and much more courageous in everything that you do. It's easy for me to write positive self-talk. I can do this. What I often find is that women have perfected the art of negative thinking, of negative self-talk, as I've explained in an earlier slide. So I believe that of all of these things, possibly the ability to learn to talk to yourself and think about yourself and what you do and the options available to you in a more positive and optimistic way is the most single important thing you can do to change feeling low in confidence and feeling lacking in courage so that you can move towards unstoppable. If you think you can, ladies, you will. If you think you can't, you won't. And so ultimately, I think unstoppable, or at the core of unstoppable, is the ability to think positively about yourself and to think that you can, not that you cannot. Take risks. No, you may not succeed each time, but you know what? Rather give things a go. Obviously calculated risks. You're not going to do silly things, but you know, if you're uncertain about trying to let's say go for a job, you want that really, you'd love that supervisor's job. Well, if you don't apply for the job, you're not going to get it anyway. So if you do apply for the job and you get it, fantastic. If you do apply for the job and you don't, well, learn from it. And maybe what you could do is go to the person who selected the person who eventually got the role and say, look, I'd really be interested in a role like this in the future. Could you please tell me what I need to do more of so that I would be able to land a job like this in the future? Now, that's the power of positive thinking. In fact, that's actually resilience. So it would be, tell me, teach me, show me, help me grow so that I can get to where I want to go, as opposed to women with no confidence and no courage wouldn't even try to go for the job because they know they couldn't get it. And if you don't try, well, you'll never get there anyway. So, you know, being unstoppable is about thinking that you can, not thinking that you can't. Have the courage to be different. You know, I think very often in childhood and adolescence, we desperately try and be the same. We try and fit into the mold. We try and follow the masses. But I think one of the wonderful things in life is the ability or the courage to just be different. You know, if everybody else is wearing blue, why wouldn't you wear pink with green dots? And I think it's because people don't want to be seen to be different. They fear being criticized or laughed at or judged. But I must say, I think that being different is so refreshing, but that takes courage. Pick yourself up and brush yourself down. If your life isn't working, or you've, you know, failed at something, or you've suffered a defeat, don't stay there too long, ladies. We all make mistakes. We're not going to win at everything in life, sadly, but many things we are. And I think it's about, you've got to be in the race to win it. You can't sit on the bleachers watching, hoping that actually you'll win the race if you're not even in it. So to lose sometimes is good. To win is even better. But I think that if we learn to just pick ourselves up and keep going, and at the same time still believe that we're doing a great job and we're wonderful, then we will win ultimately, and we will become unstoppable ultimately. What we did with Joe, I helped her understand why she felt the way she did, helped her develop more healthy and positive thinking patterns, walked beside her while she plucked up the courage to do new things. One was to travel overseas on her own. One was to go and do a salsa course. The other one was to learn a new language. These are things she'd always wanted to do since she was a young child and never had the courage to. And she did fantastically well. She wanted to go up and become a social worker ultimately. She rolled into uni, and I think she becomes a social worker in February next year. So it was just about having somebody to teach her and somebody to believe in her, somebody to help her realize that she's got everything at her fingertips to be unstoppable. Helps her succeed at those things she envied others of, also going on a date, public speaking, all the little things that so many of us take for granted. And when I say assisted her to do the public speaking, she was petrified to do this. But her boss had asked her to, so we did role play after role play. I helped her with the speech, and she was phenomenal at it, so much so that her manager actually suggested she does a TED talk. And of course, each time when we were doing these little things, and she won a bit and she won a bit and she won a bit, so she's gaining in confidence. And then as she gains in confidence, she's got the courage to do more and more things. And as she becomes more courageous, she's just unstoppable. She really truly is unstoppable. There's nothing that she won't try, and that's what I love about the sort of things that we're talking about. And she would say to you that her greatest fear was her, really. The only thing that stopped her was her. Helped her find the career she longed for, helped her become more courageous in her life and confident. She will tell you she's a different person to the person or to the one she was. So we did a lot of different things with Jo. I come back to my program, and I'm so passionate about the program. It takes you from this to this. And, if I didn't believe so much in women and what we're trying to do with women around the world, the program I run is not only for women in Australia. There are thousands of women who come onto the line. There are thousands of women who come onto the program. And we, as I said, in February, will be launching a 9-stage online program, which talks about all of the stuff that I'm talking to you about now. And the online program will be supported by the monthly webinars like this. So the Empowering Women to Thrive, it's a 12-stage program, face-to-face and online, as I said, 1- and 2-day training programs for women. 9-stage blended learning online, as I've just mentioned. We do the monthly webinars. It's really interesting. These monthly webinars kind of blow me away. Last month we had, I can't even remember the topic, they change every month, but there were about 56 women on the line, some from Denmark, some from the States, some from Fiji, a couple from Belgium, New Zealand. I have no idea how they come onto these webinars, but the point is that it's helping women, and that's what I absolutely love, that women are benefiting from it, and that's what my sole intention is. We want to run 3 annual women's retreats. We ran a couple last year, which were fabulously successful, and an annual conference. And of course, I do lots of blogs and posts. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see a lot of the blogs and posts. If you go onto our website, I'm blogging and posting on Facebook all the time. And the reason why I refer you to those is because I'm talking about topics that you might be interested in. And of course, those are all topics about women overall. So what I would like to offer you, which I did last time, is we call about a free strategic review, but it's probably just a free 20-minute session with you if you want a quick discussion with me about your life or where you're struggling, or if you'd like some help along the way about turning something around, you're very welcome to. You could do one of 2 things. Email me on info@karenwalsh.com.au, or alternatively, my PA, her name is MJ, she will send you an email with a time trade link. And a time trade link, what it is that you go in and you book yourself a 20 or half an hour, program, time slot. It costs you absolutely nothing, but you're welcome to have a free chat with me about some of the issues that might be of concern for you or to you, and to just see whether there's anything that I can do to help you get your life on track. So there's a lot of you on the line tonight, ladies. There's over 40 of you on the line from what I can see. And I would really be very happy to take any questions that you may have at this moment in time. Okay, so I have a question here from Sam. And the question from Sam is, can you describe a little bit about what personal empowerment as a woman is? Sure, I can, Sam. So I talk a lot about personal empowerment for women. And personal empowerment really is around taking control of your life and making decisions about what you want to do and how you want to live your life. So when we talk about empowerment, it's about choices. It's about, and obviously those choices would be informed choices, informed decisions. It's also about having the skills. I think one of the real things that I think women struggle with, a couple of things, key things would be the ability to resolve conflict well, I think women struggle with. And what I mean by that is really the key skill would be to be assertive. Oh dear, so many women just, even in business, I was watching this thing by the the CEO of Facebook the other day, Sheryl Sandberg, and she was talking about how women, if a woman wants a raise in her role, she won't ask for it. But a male in the same role next to her will go in and put his case on the table and get it. We know from all the research about which I will not bore you that women get 16.7% less in the same job than a man does. And yet, what I think is really interesting is that the majority of women won't do anything about it. It's almost like, well, it's our lot and we accept that. So when we talk about empowerment, Sam, it's about being able to be assertive and actually to really stand up for what you want. To go into, I hate the word battle, but I'll use it, to go into negotiation and fight for what you want, because you deserve it. You're just as worthy as the man sitting next to you. And I think the other thing that's interesting around empowerment is that I was reading a figure that I think it was 46% of entrepreneurial businesses in Australia are women. So they started and run by women. And the second statistic that was really interesting is that entrepreneurial or people who become entrepreneurs, of those who survive, and we know that the majority of entrepreneurial initiatives die in the first, I think it's 2 or 3 years, but the majority of people who are successful as entrepreneurs, and I'm talking high, I think it's up about 80%, are women. And that's because we're organized, we multitask, and we do a whole range of different things. So the ability to become personally empowered, to make decisions, to take control of your life as opposed to allowing others to take control of your life, to have your own say, to manage your finances, to make informed decisions, and to live in a meaningful and productive way, and to be happy in your own skin, and to love what you do and to love who you are. To me, that's empowerment. And here I've got another question from Dawn. Dawn's asking me when we will be running the conferences and when we will be running the retreats. We're working on that right now, and hopefully in January we will have a much better understanding of what we will run in 2018. I think it will be something that's really important, because it certainly seems as if the groundswell of what we're trying to do is growing significantly. And I so look forward to working with you in the future, ladies. I would love you to come onto Time Trade Link, have a chat with me, get to know me a bit better. If there's any way I can help you, or if there's any way you'd like me to assist you, coach you, work with you, well, I think let's get serious. Let's turn your lives around if you would like that help, and get on to me tonight or tomorrow. So it's been wonderful having a chat with you this evening. I hope that you've really benefited from this webinar, and I wish you well, and I hope to hear from you very shortly. So God bless, and until I see you again or hear from you again or speak to you next month, I wish you well. Take care.